Buenos dias in Mexico. Goedemiddag in Antwerp. Thank you all for joining us for this first live interview as part of our IPA in Conversation with interview series, where we will be looking at the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on publishers all around the world. I invite you to go to our website to see my chat with Iru Ju from Korea last week and find out who we will be talking to next. Today, it's a real pleasure for me to be joined by Rudy van Schoonbeck, publisher in Belgium and president of the influential Federation of European Publishers. Rudy, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Hugo, and buenos dias.
We have about 20 minutes, and I have lots of questions for you, Rudy. But if those of you watching have any questions, please feel free to use the question and answer tool. And if we have time at the end, I'll try to ask Rudy some of your questions. So if it's okay with you, Rudy, should we start? Let me throw at you the first question. Rudy, could you tell us what has been the situation about the pandemic around Europe? Which countries have been hardest hit?
Well, the situation has been quite catastrophic for everyone, for the whole book ecosystem, bookshops being closed down since mid-March approximately, or their access has been restricted. So even when they stayed open, as was the case in Sweden, the stressful climate has diverted customers. So I think that the outcome is rather dramatic, and that there is that we suffer an annual loss of some 30% of turnover. So this means it's quite endangering for publishers as well as for booksellers. Some titles are not published, are postponed, which also has an impact on the revenues for the authors who have written the books and are waiting to do lectures and to talk to the public about their book. Book fairs have been cancelled, although the latest news is that Frankfurt is going on in autumn, but the London Book Fair, Bologna Book Fair, Leipzig, and so on. So we had a springtime without any public event of any importance. Together with the Booksellers Association, we as a Publishers Association try to propose measures to help to develop some help in this worrisome times.
Thank you, Rudy. I mean, well, those figures are really worrying, but it's certainly encouraging to see all the work you're doing, especially together with booksellers. And in that regard, I know FEP has been extremely active. How has FEP supported its members?
Thanks for that. Yes, I must say that almost the first day after lockdown, there was the initiative by our secretariat to create a special WhatsApp group, which we called Publishers versus Corona.
Okay.
Everyone could join in, so it's an easy group to join in, and we exchange information and experience throughout Europe. What is happening in France, in Italy, in Sweden, in Latvia, in Belgium, you name it. And we had an exchange of ideas. And together with the WhatsApp group, we also produced a daily newsletter that we mailed and put on our internet site, where we gave a survey, or we give a survey of the situation in every country and the measures that we are taking or that we are hearing to be taken by the European Commission or by national governments. So trying to support each other and try to be united.
That's awesome, Rudy. I fully agree about the importance of sharing information with our members in times like these. And I fully agree that we have to remain united in these circumstances, absolutely. Rudy, how are you personally dealing with this difficult situation? I mean, you're a publisher yourself. What about your own publishing house and the situation in Belgium?
Well, my publishing company, Uitgeverij Vrijdag, it's in the Flemish market, and the Flemish market has suffered bookshops closing down mid-March until they were reopened, I think, some 2 weeks ago. So the decrease of 30% throughout Europe is definitely happening in Flanders as well. You could say my publishing company is a mid-sized company in this market. And I was quite lucky, to be very honest, to have two titles in the beginning of May. One non-fiction title on the Belgian political situation that we launched with a Zoom presentation that was very widely viewed and acclaimed, so that the book entered the bestseller list here in Flanders. And the same happened to a fiction title. We won the award of Best Crime Novel in Holland with a Flemish author, which is rather exceptional, which means that we are quite selling well in the Dutch market now, this new title. So these two titles, as well, we publishers know that's happening all the time. You need a few titles to pay for the rest of the diversity of your business. But Absolutely. It's awesome to have this luck in these difficult times.
Congratulations for that, Rudy. And you mentioned twice about the luck you had, but let me add that it's also a result of a lot of work you've done. So I mean, it's partially luck, but it's also a lot of work.
Yeah, it was, sorry to interrupt you, but that's true. I think that's true for every publisher. And I don't want to be too euphoric, because even then it doesn't make up for the sales we had last year's, for example. So we are recouping, but the online sales in this bestseller list is helping a lot, but still we're back on track.
Well, that's good to know that you're back on track. And going back to Europe, how do you think, how is this situation in Europe? While bookstores were closed in many countries, I heard that they are reopening again. How is this going? Are home deliveries allowed? Are books being classed as essential?
Well, Europe is a fairly diverse continent. Despite most of us are united in the European Union, health politics remain a national prerogative, meaning that the opening of bookshops was different from one country to another. In some countries, they stayed open and they remained open. I mentioned Sweden already, but also in Holland, in the Netherlands, or in Latvia, the bookshops remained open, although with some restrictions, of course. But in others, and in other countries, there was a delivery of books to the customers with all means of transport. I remember even a snapshot, a photo on Facebook, I think, or on Instagram, of a German bookseller skating to deliver books.
Really? So that's awesome.
Using your bike or your motorcycle or whatever, but well, home delivery has become quite accepted in these weeks. As for essential products, unlike in the United States, where all states decided to keep books within the list of essential products, here in Europe, we had, for example, in France, companies like Amazon, which is a quite important online seller, of course, they were not allowed to deliver non-essential products, and books were listed as non-essential. And in other countries, books were considered essential products indeed. So there was, but to be very honest, this issue was less a concern for traditional bookstores, because they are never prohibited to deliver books themselves, although it does not compensate physical sales, as I said before. But the economic reasons obliged Amazon to well, they were forbidden in France, for example, not to fulfill sending books to the customer.
Okay. So yeah, I know that has been the case. I think all around the world. I've been also following this discussion if books should be considered essential, and the response in different countries is so different. You know, as you mentioned, while in some countries books are being considered essential, and for example, bookstores are the first shops to be opened again. In countries like mine, in Mexico, it's they're definitely not considered essential. You know that instead of opening bookstores first, the first thing to reopen was beer production here. So beer is rather, I think, more important here than books, which is a pity. And IPA has urged governments all around the world, as I know FEP has done in Europe, to really to do so, to classify books as essential, to recognize the importance of books for culture in a society. And in that regard, I was also thinking, Rudy, how important has international cooperation been?
Well, honestly, FEP, the Federation of European Publishers, is focusing on the European approach, clearly sharing our national experiences, as I told you, with the WhatsApp group and the daily newsletter and the permanent contact through many ways. So we try to put pressure on our governments and the European Commission in the first place. Nonetheless, we were and are very keen to get ideas and to know what has been happening or what is happening throughout the world, and to develop right and fair solutions. So the good understanding that we have with you, with IPA, is also quite crucial, I think, and reciprocal for both of us.
Thank you, Rudy. Absolutely. I fully agree on the idea of working together, and that's why it's always a pleasure to collaborate with FEP and with you personally as well. How do you think the European Union has responded to support publishers and the publishing sector in general? Are any sectors receiving specific support?
Well, in terms of budget, the EU has little money for culture. In general, it's less than 0.1% of the total budget, of the entire budget. Nevertheless, we had a very useful video conference with the Commissioner for Culture, Mrs. Maria Gabriel. So some weeks ago, I think it was the end of April or mid-April, she was very supportive, and she was suggesting several paths to support the sector. And however, even if the budget should be doubled in Parliament, let's say, this would not be sufficient. So the EU has opened up the state aid to 100%, which would allow member states to fully finance projects. And the EU is also massively injecting money into European economies. Only a few days ago, Mrs. von der Leyen announced to lend 750 million euros to support the most problematic countries. So that's happening, and hopefully member states are encouraged to support the cultural sector and the book sector in particular.
I really hope so, because the figures you mentioned before about the budget being for books being less than 0.1% is really disheartening. So I hope that your efforts really you will be able to achieve something there. And if there's any way for IPA we could help, please let us know, Rudy.
We will, yeah.
And what about our most important partners in the business, our authors and the booksellers?
Yeah, sure. We have been in constant contact with the Booksellers Association and the Writers Association, because any solution must support the entire ecosystem. Absolutely. That has been also our guiding principle all the time. So with EIBF, the Booksellers Association, we have designed 10 measures to help the booksellers sector to overcome the crisis. We prepared a compilation of European measures and national measures that we recommend to be urgently adopted by our governments or by the European institutions. Both documents recouped pretty much. And then we have, in preparation of the video conference between the European culture ministers this week, we have developed two specific measures. The first being a book voucher for citizens to go and visit local bookshops and inject liquidity in the entire chain, supporting authors, publishers, and booksellers. So this voucher can be introduced in one country on a different way as in another country, but the principle should be to have liquidity going on. The second is a broader one and would consist, and we note that several countries are adopting it, into massive public purchase of books, again via local bookshops, for libraries and educational establishments. Both measures, we hope, would help all stakeholders and society in general to have access to books and to enhance that access and to enhance reading itself. If there's something good coming out of this crisis, is that lockdown has encouraged citizens to read, to find books comforting, and useful. For example, French figures, they have shown that in average people have read 2.5 books during the 2 months of confinement, which may not sound much to a publisher, but it's far more than usual. It's 54% having read at least one book during the 8 weeks of confinement, of lockdown, and 11% more than 7 books a week as we are used to. So we are happy with that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, and really, I think that those sound like really great ideas. And for example, what you mentioned about the book voucher, if I understood correctly, the idea is that would be people could use it in different countries as well. I mean, if you get a book voucher in France, you would be able to use it in Germany or something like that.
No. The idea is to discuss this with the national government and to have a voucher to spend in your local bookshop.
In your local bookshop.
For a start, yeah. But why not try to in a second way, perhaps cross-border? That's perhaps something we have to keep in mind. Why not?
But in any case, I mean, that sounds like a great idea, and the book purchasing by the state, I mean, those sound really great ideas. I truly hope they will be implemented. And I fully agree with you as well about the importance of books, especially in times like these. I mean, we're looking at how people are turning to books while in confinement. So yeah, I think that's as you mentioned, the positive outcome of all of this. And what do you think, Rudy? What do you think publishers have done in different countries to support society during lockdown? How have they adapted to support teachers or pupils or parents needing to entertain children?
Well, educational publishers definitely have acted very responsible as a social actor in supporting education. They have been working with libraries to address the extraordinary increase of demand, although they themselves take a big toll in this crisis, and they saw their revenues nearing zero during this period. Yet they did their utmost to satisfy the needs of the population locked at home, opening online possibilities and sharing the educational content that is available. So I'm quite proud of publishers who have played the role that the social role that was expected of them. And I hope that public authorities will play theirs as well and help publishers as their national allies in education and also with allies as bookshops and authors, as I mentioned before. General general publishers also help bookshops with, I think, extra margin to compensate for the online sales and bringing the books to the public.
Yeah, I also hope that the authorities will also play their role. And what you just mentioned about what publishers are doing, and for example, especially educational publishers who have been really hit hard by this crisis, that's really encouraging to hear. I mean, the responses by publishers globally in general make me feel proud of being one. I really trust authorities all over the world will recognize and support the value chain of authors, publishers, and booksellers. So I still have a couple of questions more, Rudy, and then we're almost through. What do you think our role as publishers is, especially in times like these?
Well, I think it's the role we always have, but we have to emphasize it even in these weeks and these difficult months. We guarantee quality, diversity,
Absolutely.
and professional editorial content and management. I think that's what makes the difference. Internet, television, radio, they have been a very important window to knowledge, of course, and to information, but it's crucial that citizens are able to access to professional and information that is gathered and edited in a professional way and with the quality that we guarantee throughout the times. That's for textbooks, that's for fiction or non-fiction whatsoever. So this importance of nuance and diversity is quite crucial, to my opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely. I fully agree with you in that regard. I mean, we have been also mentioning that there's so much fake news going around that the role of publishers with really curated information being published is so important. And Rudy, to try to wrap up the questions and see if we have a couple of minutes for receiving some questions from the audience, would you have a message for other publishers around the world who are dealing with the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, Hugo, my message would be think creatively. Continue explaining to all politicians how they can help us. And if they help publishers, they help authors and booksellers. It's the ecosystem as a whole. Another thing I'd like to say is take advantage of the crisis to learn more from your readers and to connect with them via online events. I had a very good personal experience, as I mentioned before, with this Zoom presentation. So that opens new possibilities also after the crisis. And lastly, I'd like to stress or to emphasize cooperation with colleagues, with booksellers, and with authors, and surely resist the crisis.
Yeah, I really like what you just mentioned, and I fully agree with you. And I also think that cooperation is really essential among authors, publishers, and booksellers, especially. I have no doubt that we will come out of this together. And as you mentioned, Rudy, we have to resist.
Yeah, we like challenging times. That's part of our business. So let's make it an advantage in these difficult times. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Rudy. So let me just quickly check with our production team if there's any questions. It doesn't seem so that we have any questions. So then I think we covered our 20 minutes, and it has been really delightful, Rudy, to have this conversation with you. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for your valuable insights, Rudy.
Thank you for it, and take care, all of you.
Thank you, Rudy. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.